Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker from My Favorite Things. I have a wintry birthday card to share with you today. I have been doing a lot of Christmas cards lately, and I thought it was a good idea to take a little break from that and do a birthday card. We definitely want to remember all of the people in our lives that have birthdays in December and not let those get lost in the holidays. I have a few family members in my family who have birthdays in December, including my grandma who was actually born on Christmas. As a kid, I always thought it was kind of cool that her birthday was on Christmas and that her name is Carol, like a Christmas carol. But as an adult, I can see how someone with a birthday on Christmas might sometimes feel a little bit forgotten. So anyways, I wanted to make a wintry birthday card, and this stamp set was perfect for it. This is the Chillin with You stamp set, which you could definitely use for Christmas cards, but it has a really great birthday sentiment in it, which I'm going to be using on this card. I picked out a bunch of the images from the set and I stamped them onto some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock using the MFT Extreme Black ink, which is a good Copic-friendly ink. And now I'm just coloring them all in with my Copic markers, and I do have the marker caps set off to the sides so that you can see all the colors that I used. Now, before I did any of the stamping, I really planned this card out so that I would know which stamps I needed to stamp. Now, I don't always plan out my cards exactly the same way, but the way that I planned out this card was by first making some sketches in my sketchbook. Once I had a sketch that I liked, I then grabbed a slimline card base because I knew that I wanted to make this a slimline card, and I started to lay out the different stamps onto that card base to figure out the spacing, and this helped me pick out all of the stamps that I wanted to use for the card. I do this kind of thing a lot when I plan. I actually have template card bases for all of the different size cards that I use most often so that I could use that template to figure out the spacing for things. So this birthday card is a little bit inspired by Laura Basson. A little bit ago on the MFT channel, she did a landscape card that was really colorful and beautiful, and I wanted to use a similar technique for this card, but I am changing it up quite a bit. So this can kind of give you an idea of how you can take a technique from someone's video and make it your own. Also, if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out because it was amazing. Once all of the coloring was done, I cut out all of the different images with the coordinating dies, and then I picked out a whole bunch of different colors of cardstock, mostly in the blue family. I'm going to be using the Outside the Box Snowdrift die set and the Outside the Box Waves die set to cut all of these different colors of cardstock. Now, when I run all of these through my die cutting machine, I'm making sure to place my top plate only on top of that edge that I want to cut so that it only cuts through that one part. I used the Snowdrift dies to cut 2 snowy hills out of some white cardstock for my scene, and the rest of the colors that I'm cutting are all going to be with the Waves dies to make my ocean scene. Now, I think I mentioned in my last video on the My Favorite Things channel that I use these outside the box dies for a lot of things all the time, not just the outside the box set, so I think that these are pretty versatile. Once all of those pieces were die cut, I grabbed one of the 2 snowdrifts that I cut out, and I'm going to take tumbled glass and blend it very softly up from the bottom so that I can create some shadow. You'll see when I place the hills on the card later that this blending is going to give me some nice contrast between the 2 hills. I have a piece of light gray cardstock which is cut to 3 by 8, and I'm going to start creating my scene on that by gluing my 2 mountains at the top of that with some liquid adhesive. I added some strong double-sided tape to the back of the snowy hill with the blue blending, and I placed that so that it's just covering up the bottoms of those 2 mountains. You want to make sure to really take your time when you place these and be very careful to line up those edges so they're nice and flush. I adhered the second snowy hill, and then I grabbed the first color of blue, which is the lightest blue, and I'm placing that right on top. And then I'm actually going to grab the little penguin that I cut out earlier, and I'm going to glue him down so that it looks like he's fishing in that water. Next, I took the walrus and using some tweezers, I held him so that I could add some glue right along the bottom edge. And I'm gluing him so he's sitting on top of that little iceberg. I then added some more glue, this time along the bottom edge of the iceberg. And I'm going to take the next color of blue water and place that on the glue so that it looks like the iceberg is sitting in the water. And of course, you know the next step is to add that onto the top of the card with some of that strong double-sided adhesive. Next, I'm going to grab one of my 2 polar bears and I'm going to sit him right on top of that next blue cardstock so that he's just relaxing in the water there. I added him onto the card and then I did exactly the same thing with the next polar bear, gluing him onto the next color of cardstock. But with this one, I actually glued him on the right-hand side a little bit more so that he's not on the same side as the other polar bear. Before adding my last color of cardstock, I took some of my little scraps of paper and I stacked them together to create this little dimensional piece so that I could fill in the bottom edge there with the same amount of dimension as the rest of my panel. And then I popped the last color right on top of that. I trimmed the excess paper off of the edge and then I adhered that entire panel onto a slimline card base. I stamped the birthday sentiment from the set with VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto some white cardstock, die cut it out with a skinny strips die, and then popped it up onto the bottom of the card. I then grabbed my white gel pen and I added a whole bunch of dots to the gray background to kind of look like snow, and then I also added a few highlights to some of the colored in images. To finish this card up, I went over the sentiment with my Wink of Stella glitter brush, and I also added a whole bunch of sequins all across the card. After that, this card is all done. I hope you really enjoyed this card design and that it gave you some ideas for all of your winter birthdays. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.